to my Harlem portraits, the show that aims at shedding the light on the fundamental contribution of African Americans to the building of this country and of Black excellence. Today, we are celebrating Black excellence in civil rights and in the arts. Why? Because we are in Winston-Salem, we are at the International Black Theater Festival, and we are talking to a legend, an icon in civil rights movement, a person who really, not even 13 years old, she was already on the bridge from Selma to Montgomery with Martin Luther King Jr. Who are we talking about? LYNDA BLACKMON LOWERY. Thank you for being with us. I am so honored to have a legend like you with me.
It is my honor and a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
God. So let's tell people who don't know what happened in Selma, what happened during those years, 1965. Let's start from the beginning. Where were you born and what was your childhood like? You had a very traumatic experience.
My name is LYNDA BLACKMON LOWERY. I was born and raised in Selma, Alabama. My determination to make change in this world came on September the 19th, 1957. That was the day my mom died. I was 7 years old then, and the oldest of 4. And after, growing up in a segregated society, I knew, like, from birth that being Black, you didn't like white people, and being white, you didn't like Black people. But I often say that's the day I found out what hate really was. I heard my grandmother and the older people saying my mom wouldn't have died if she hadn't been colored. She died from complications due to childbirth. She needed a blood transfusion. There was blood in the all-white Baptist hospital that could have possibly saved my mom. But because they didn't have Negro blood, the blood she needed had to be sent some 96 miles away from Birmingham by Trailway bus. And my father was at the bus station, got the blood when the bus came in, took it to Burwell Infirmary, which was an upscale urgent care for Black people in those days in Selma. And he was told my mom had been dead 15 minutes. So he lived with that until he died. And he felt guilty. He could have possibly saved his wife, but he was 15 minutes too late. And from all accounts, he was waiting on that bus that had to be 15 minutes too late. But that's when I made a vow when I was 7 years old, that when I got big, I was gonna change things. And nobody would ever have to grow up without a mommy again because of the color of her skin.
I am really sorry. I didn't know the details of that. I probably wouldn't have asked you.
That's part of my story and part of my motivation for me to share the story, because when I'm out speaking and I start my story, I will start with, before my 15th birthday, I have been jailed 9 times, twice in a state prison camp.
Wow.
And you're looking at a happy and proud jailbird.
My God.
and that's
for
how I
doing
tell
nothing,
my
for
story.
doing nothing but just trying to have your rights applied.
Yes, just trying to change things for all people, and eventually we did.
So tell me tell me how it happened. So you heard Martin Luther King Jr. speak in a church, and that sparked something in you.
When I was 13, my sister, one of my sisters and I was downtown with my grandmother, and a friend asked her if she was going to go see King that afternoon. Well, when she said yes, and by the lady just saying King, we got all excited because every Saturday morning, 10:30, a show came on TV, Sergeant Preston of the Yukon. And he had this magnificent German Shepherd named King that saved everything and everybody in like 25 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So when she said yes, she was going to go see King, we just knew we were going to go see this German Shepherd. We got excited. And I often say then she dressed us up on a Saturday in our Sunday best. So we knew we were seeing somebody special.
Yeah.
The German Shepherd.
But instead, it was not the German Shepherd.
Right. We had decided on how we was going to shake his paw and who we was going to let him say. And we got to the church and found the seats and all these people sitting up there talking, and we were just looking around for this German Shepherd. And a man with, I'd say it, the biggest eyes I had ever seen, named Mr. James Baldwin, introduced the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We were some disappointed children because we was looking for the German Shepherd. But when Dr. King started to speak, he was talking to our parents about the right to vote and getting it nonviolently. He said you can get a person to do anything with steady, loving confrontation. And it passed by my 13-year-old ears. But the second time he said it in that speech, I heard him distinctively call my spirit. He said, Linda, you can get to do anything with steady, loving confrontation. And I jumped up saying, oh yeah, that's how I'm gonna do it. And my grandmother pulling me back down on the pew saying, you better shut up, you in church. But I realized and remembered my vow at 7. And all these people were standing up with me for change. And I knew I wasn't alone, but he empowered my spirit. I didn't know what empowerment meant or if that wasn't even a word then, but he empowered me. And I've been empowered ever since.
Yeah, you felt the call and you followed it.
Yes.
And you went through with it. So this brought you to become a volunteer, a non-violent volunteer in the movement of Dr.
Yes.
Martin Luther King Jr. And we come to March 21st, 1965.
Well, in order to get to March 21st, which was the third and successful
at the
march.
Capitol.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
first one
need to
was-
go back to March 7th,
Yes.
and that's what's known as Bloody Sunday.
Yes.
And marches were attacked and so forth. But we actually need to know why we were on that bridge on March 7th. And that was due to the fact that a young man named Jimmy Lee Jackson, who lived in Marion about 30 miles west of Selma, had been shot during a night march while attempting to protect his mother and or 82-year-old grandfather. He was shot in the stomach twice by an Alabama state trooper. And he died. He was brought to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma. It was now a hospital for blacks and poor whites. and he died some 8 days later. I'll never forget the day he died. It was February 26, 1965. And that was the day my friend Ruby Nell Brooks turned 15. That was her birthday. And we couldn't celebrate it because of this young man's death. So they decided, the leaders decided that they were going to walk from Selma to Montgomery to inform then Governor George Wallace that we were protesting the death, the murder of Jimmy Lee, and that we were still on the battlefield nonviolently for the right to vote. That's why we were on that bridge that day, trying to head to Montgomery. We were, we lined up two abreast. We were led by the late Congressman John Lewis and Hosea Williams. Mr. Albert Turner, one of the movement leaders in Marion, and I'll never forget our 17-year-old high school leader at the time was Charles Malden. When John in the front got down to the line of state troopers, we were told we were an illegal assembly and there would be no march from Selma to Montgomery that day. And one of our trainers, Jimmy Webb, was walking up and down the line saying, "Kneel, kneel." Because we had been on a couple of marches where we was stopped by the police and they didn't take us to jail. We knelt, said a prayer, and went back to the church and regrouped. But so kneeling was a thing that we were aware of. And from about the 17th row, going back up the bridge, we started kneeling. And while on my knees, I heard these gunshots. And then there was this smoke coming up from the ground. And we didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what it was. It burned your nose, your eyes, couldn't breathe, couldn't see, and very confusing and scary. I felt someone grab me in the back of my collar, trying to pull me out of this kneeling position, and I was resisting. So this person leaned over me and grabbed me by my lapels and jerked me backwards into him. And I always said that was a dumb move on his part. It might have been on my part too, but his hand came up by my mouth. That was the only part of me that wasn't nonviolent. And I bit him. And I heard the word nigger twice, and he hit me in my forehead twice.
Wow.
He pushed me away from him, and I was able to get up and start running into this cloud of tear gas, and this man who turned out to be a sheriff's deputy was running behind me, hitting me.
Wow. Okay. I know exactly what you went through because I was participating in the students' protests in Italy, and we had an episode like that. The police didn't kill us like they did in because we were not black, but I can just imagine what went through your mind in that moment, and being taken to prison. That is at the age on top of it. So, and Martin Luther King Jr. was at the top of this with Lewis, right? And then they decided to do a march on the Capitol.
The March 7th, which is known as Bloody Sunday, was the beginning of our 3 marches. The second march, after people saw on television that night how the marchers had been beaten and tear gas and horses running into us and state troopers. After people saw that on television, Dr. King asked for concerned citizens and clergy to join him in Selma on Tuesday, March 9th, for a march. And that was, to all my understanding, going to be a symbolic march to let the powers in Alabama, to let them know that we were not stopping. And we would continue. So that march was what they called Turnaround Tuesday. And on that day, after they knelt and prayed, we went back to the church. But see, that day, because I didn't finish the March 7th thing, that on March 7th, on Bloody Sunday, I was 14 and I received a total of 35 stitches in my head.
Oh, wow.
So on March 9th, I was right back out there with my sister and some more of our friends when we marched across the bridge on Turnaround Tuesday. Dr. King later said at the church, at the mass meeting that day, that he had applied for a court order for permission to walk from Selma to Montgomery with protection. And I made the second vow of my life. I said in that church, Lord, if there's a march from Selma to Montgomery, please let me be on it. And of course, my dad and my grandmother said I couldn't, but I was determined. I was gonna run away if I had to, because I wanted then Governor George Wallace to see my bandages and my shaven head, and I wanted him to know, boy, you just messed up. You've created your worst nightmare. I was gonna grow up, get an education, come back and take his job. That's what I was gonna do. I'm so glad dreams change. I'm glad.
Fantastic. So let's go to the Capitol now, and then I'm gonna talk about your book, which has been turned into a show.
Oh yes, okay. On the march actually lasted. I was actually able to go on that march, and on March 18th, my name, Lynda Blackmon, age 14, became the youngest name on the official list of 300 that was allowed to walk from Selma to Montgomery with the protection of the Alabama National Guard, who had been federalized by then President Lyndon B. Johnson to protect us, and he also sent regular army. And so it took us 4 days. It rained some kind of way all 4 days. We were led into the city by Dr. King. And the next day was the 25th, and there were thousands of people walking from what we call the city of St. Jude, which was a Catholic compound, you might say, school, hospital, you know, and training, nursing school and stuff. So we marched from there to the state capitol, which was about maybe 5 blocks away. My father, my grandmother, and my 3 siblings and I walked together because they came from Selma, you know, to do this. And so we walked together. That was a proud moment. I didn't We got 2.5 blocks from the Capitol. This is how big the crowd was, and we wasn't at the end.
Wow.
They said it was over 25,000 people, and I believe it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we got there, and I stood on somebody's car and yelled, "I'm here, Governor Wallace. I'm here." I know he didn't see my bandaged head or my scars, but I had started something.
Yes.
And I had finished it. I made this goal. I worked towards its completion, and I had finished it. And that was something that was powerful to me in itself, because my grandmother always taught my siblings and I that she was not raising any quitters. When we start something, we had to take it to the end no matter the outcome. And that's how you learn. And that's how you grow. So, yeah.
And what you did was, first of all, historical and had historical consequences, because Lyndon Johnson, the president, was so under pressure by what had happened in Selma that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. managed to convince him to sign the
Voting Rights Act of 1965. We will be celebrating it in Selma on August 3rd, but it was actually signed on August 6, 1965, and that gave everybody in this country the opportunity or their privilege to vote, something we don't use now, but it
Not
is
enough.
your privilege.
And this brings us to two things. First of all, your book. When
Okay.
did you decide to write your book, which is called Turning 13 on the
Road to Freedom? I had met two ladies, Susan Buckley and Elspeth Leacock. They wrote history books and for children, and even did school curriculums in New York and so forth for history and programs like that. So they had contacted the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute in Selma, and at the time they spoke to my sister, and they were looking for a young person who took part in that movement, and she immediately told them, "You want to talk to my sister."
Yeah, she's the youngest one.
So they did. We talked, and they had a 4 series of history books and the last one they put a 750 word story, my story, in their book. And we used to then go around and visit schools and talk to children, tell the story. History, it can't happen without you. And one day, Elspeth said, "Linda, we need to do a book just about you." And I say, "I don't think so, because I wouldn't buy no book about me." But then it took them almost 8 years to get my story out of me. Wow. Because it really brought back a lot of hurt and a lot of memories. And it had taken me 40 plus years to get over those things. So it was hard to, just bring them up again. And I didn't know I was suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome from those things. And
But
once I
wrote it.
started talking, baby, I haven't stopped since. I'm on an assignment.
Because you realize that helps you also.
It
when you
most
take
certainly
out,
does.
On top of helping everybody else who's listening to you and who's hearing from the words of someone who lived that.
And I often start crying at certain parts of the story. Sometimes in telling it, it just overwhelms me.
Yeah.
Cause in my book and all the time I've told the story up until November 2nd, 2020. I always said I must have passed out because after running into this cloud of tear gas, because when I woke up, they had me on a stretcher trying to put me in the back of a hearse. We didn't have ambulances at that time for people of color. And I let them know I wasn't dead and I wasn't getting in there. So I jumped and I started running back across the bridge. But on November the 2nd, the day after my sister Jackie died, I was being interviewed by CBS News for a special they did on BET called The Boiling Point. And after that interview, the producer said he had found some archival footage in the vaults of CBS he wanted me to see. And there I am, running into this cloud of tear gas, white jacket, black skirt, black pants, and white sneakers. And there's this man, a sheriff's deputy, running behind me, hitting me. And I didn't pass out. I'm looking at me falling to the ground. I'm looking at this Alabama state trooper kicking me so hard I came up off the ground. I'm looking at a sheriff's deputy hitting me with something that looked like a small baseball bat.
Oh my God.
And another sheriff's deputy hit and kicked me. And for 55 years, I did not know this was what happened to me. And since that day I found out, I seriously wish I still didn't know, because it is more hurtful now, I think, seeing it than it was when it actually happened. I received 35 stitches that day. And what I saw on those men's faces was the same arrogant, privileged hatred that you see on, that I saw on Derek Chauvin's face when he had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck and he looked up in that camera. I'll never forget that. You know, I see that hatred, and I'm saying it's 55 years later. That hatred is still there.
Yeah, it was underneath, but someone who went into the White House and wasn't supposed to brought it in the foreground and gave them the pass to express it.
Yeah.
And they feel it's okay now to do that. And we are in a very dire, straight moment.
We are. We really are.
So we are going to talk about that because you are here at Winston Salem at the International Black Theater Festival because you have been honored as with the Theater Arts and Humanitarian Award.
Yes.
Right? And you have today actually a reading of your play, because your book was turned into a play, which I saw maybe 2 years ago at the Riverside Church in Harlem, and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
So today, not only are you doing a reading of that, but you're also calling for both registrations.
Yes, yes.
Let's talk about that.
The
all this?
Turning 15, the play, is the really the brainchild of my of the producer and my co-producer, Miranda Barry. The play was the book was adapted into a play by Ali Sheedy. And Ali, people say, you know Ali Sheedy? Oh, yes. But Ali is the daughter of our literary agent, Charlotte. And Miranda just believed so much in the message of this story, of my story, that she was the driving force.
And I just talked to her, and yes, she's definitely
you know, behind the making of the play. And it's an awesome play, it really is.
It's a fantastic play. I loved it. I was also crying and enraged because I know exactly what's going on. So let's talk about the situation today. What do you think? Do you see hope now? Because up to 2 weeks ago, I was really very scared. Really very scared. I feel now that with the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris will probably be or surely be the Democrat nominee for the presidential, we have great hope.
Oh, yes.
What do you feel?
I am rejuvenated. I do. I love President Biden, and
he did a very courageous thing.
I realized 3 weeks before his debate with the man,
the orange thing.
The orange man. Okay, with 45. I know what I was trying to say. But I knew I had been seeing different podcasts, different white women podcasts that was really uplifting her to the ceiling and telling about her qualifications. And I tried to analyze things in my head before I speak on them. And then the debate came, and when I saw President Biden walk out, I said, and I take privilege, I take pride. Everybody is mine. He's my baby. I said, ooh, my baby's sick.
Yeah.
And I could see that. And I think he has been grooming Vice President Harris just to, for this. And I told someone, same night of that debate, I say, Joe is going to wait. I do believe he's going to wait until the convention. And he's gonna, when he's nominated, he's gonna back out and push her up there and say, and I just felt that way. And then the news media and some of them Democratic politicians, y'all gonna catch hell at the polls.
Yeah.
Cause to me, they took an icon, they took knowledge and wisdom, and they threw it under the bus and just put him down, you know. And that they're gonna get that back. You're gonna get that back. You don't just do a person like that. And I was thinking, now if they could do somebody that they admired, that trained them, that mentored them, and they have seen do an excellent job.
Yeah.
If they can do them like that, just think what they doing to people like me. They don't know, but I vote and I talk loud too.
But on the other side, what the Republicans would do would be much worse.
Now, the Republicans have shown you that they just don't give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
Trump could do no wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't care. They're getting theirs as long as they let Trump stand out there and say the things he say and do the things that he did. They were back there making laws, taking away your right to vote, taking away Medicare, taking away different things that you need.
Abortion
they don't give a
rights.
damn. They have told you that your body belongs to them. They don't give a damn. Whew. And they're going to try and put someone back into that office that has already told them now, once I get there, you won't ever have to vote again. He done told you, open your eyes. This man has broken every one of the 10 commandments at least 10,000 times each. We need to stop looking we need to start thinking with our head and our heart. Because my grandmother used to say the longest journey you will ever take is getting that head and heart together on the same issue.
Listen, I agree 2,000% with what you have just said. I'm so happy to have you here in this moment. I will show this interview to the world, and I hope you do too, because this is the most powerful message in this moment. All we need to do is vote.
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 Because your life does depend on it.
it. This is the most critical, and I'm not American, I'm Italian.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the most critical
Election.
in my lifetime, not only for America, because if someone like that goes into the White House, it's a danger not only for this country,
Right.
but for the world. Because he said it very clear, as you said, he is a new Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
And another thing too, I would like to add that everybody out there that votes, you have a black job now. Nobody can take away from you but you. That is to get yourself to the polls, take somebody with you and use that right. Because every time you decide, oh, I'm not voting, it doesn't mean anything, you're deciding that on the lives, the black and the white lives that died just so you could have that vote.
That's right.
You're deciding on Miss Viola Louisa, who left her children to come to Selma and walk with us so you could have that vote. Jimmy Lee Jackson, the 3 men and young men in Mississippi. You're Reverend Reed, who came down at the request of Dr. King. You are just, they gave their life. They didn't even know you when they came here for you. And I'm talking about everybody. I'm not talking about black people or Hispanics. I'm talking about all of God's rainbow. Everybody. That is your job. And you got that right. You got that right partly because of a 14-year-old's 35 stitches. So if you don't want to vote for yourself, go and vote for my 35 stitches.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank
you.
This is the most powerful of my interviews. Spread it around like fire, like wildfire. See you next Saturday, 12:30. Bye-bye. Wonderful.
And I want to invite all of you to the 60th Bridge Crossing Jubilee in Selma, Alabama. Now on the 50th, we had then President Barack Obama. Okay. Last year, we had Vice President Kamala Harris. But in 2025, we're going to have President Kamala Harris. And you are all invited. It will be March 7th through the 9th. And we celebrate that time because that time was a victorious time for us. You're here. It took all of us, y'all. It took all of us. Not one did it. It took God's rainbow to do it. You have that right. I mean, you have that power now. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Tanya. You was excellent. Thank you. I had people come all the way from Selma Alabama just to be up here with me today.